theyeshiva.net.
Agit Moyed, Agit Yomtiv, Moyadim L'Simcha, Bruchim Aboyim, welcome to everybody who's here. Everybody knows the argument, the Machlokes in Gemara, Masechta Sukkah, Daf Chav Zayin, if a Sukkah She'ula is kosher or not. Meaning, if I could fulfill the mitzvah of Sukkah, if it's not my own, if I borrow the Sukkah, if you give me permission to be in your Sukkah. Rabbi Lezer holds that you need lachem, just like by Lulav the first day, the sukkah also has to be yours. The Chachamim argue, and they say that no, besukas, besukkah is teishvu is written without a vav, meaning it could be pronounced as besukas, not besukkah is teishvu shivasam, but besukas. In one sukkah, all Klal Yisrael could live for 7 days. As Rashi explains, how you're going to have 16 million, he doesn't give the number 16 million, but I'm giving the number. How do you have 16 million Jews sitting in one sukkah and everybody owning the sukkah? It's impossible. Even if the sukkah is an expensive, nice sukkah, even a little more expensive than this sukkah, you're not going to have like Moti Shave Pruta, Moti Shave Pruta L'chol Chad V'chad, to say everyone is an owner, they have stock, they have value in the sukkah. It needs to be extremely uninhibitedly expensive. This means if all Jews could live and use one sukkah, it has to be a sukkah she'ula. One person owns it, few people own it, and the rest borrow the sukkah. And the expression of the Gemara, Kol Yisrael Re'uyim Leishav B'sukkah Achas. All Jews are worthy of sitting in one and the same sukkah. And that's the halacha in Shulchan Aruch, and it's practiced by almost every Jew. You're not sitting in your own sukkah, you sit in other people's sukkahs, you make a bracha, leishav b'sukkah, you fulfill the mitzvah. So that's technically, halachically, legally. But there's also a deeper dimension to it. And that is, for a sukkah to be a sukkah, it has to be a place where Kol Yisrael Re'uyim Leishav B'sukkah Achas. That every single Jew should feel that I have a place in this sukkah. If you build a sukkah, you know how it is. You come into some places and you know right away, here I have a place, here I don't have a place. You come into shuls, you come into certain yeshivas, certain batei medrash, certain locations, you feel comfortable, and other places you feel uncomfortable. Either it's your own illusion, it's your own insecurity, your own paranoia. Somebody once told me, just because I'm paranoid doesn't mean the whole world is not out to get me. So it could be your own paranoia, it could be your own insecurity, or it could be not only your own insecurity, it could be there's something valid there, but it's almost irrelevant to our discussion. Usually we feel comfortable in places where we find people who are similar to us. You go into a shul, which shul do you feel most comfortable in? Same nusach, same type of hat, the same type of yarmulke, same type of shnit, same type of look, same type of belief system. So the Gemara says that's not what sukkah is. A sukkah is a place where Kol Yisrael Re'uyim Leishav B'sukkah Achas. That every type of Jew should be able to feel comfortable in the sukkah. If there's a sukkah that excludes any type of Jew, it's an Ishkin sukkah. If it's to be a sukkah, b'sukkah teishvu. Kol Yisrael Re'uyim Leishav B'sukkah Achas. Which is what makes this sukkah tonight very beautiful. A real sukkah. Because if you look around, you don't have one type. You have every conceivable type, both in terms of garment, outer appearance, inner appearance, background, lifestyle, persuasion, nusach, shitta, mahalach, chalois, whatever you want to say. And nonetheless, we could create a sukkah where every person could feel this is my home. How do you do that? You do that by transcending barriers and connecting to that part where everyone is one, where everybody is united. You have a lulav, you have a esrog, you have a hadasai arava. They're four paradoxical personalities. But how do you unite them? By doing the mitzvah. How do you do the mitzvah? As mekita shakal. You shake up Jews, then they become united. You shake them up, you shake up, suddenly the lulav realizes he's not so different than the arava. And the esrog realizes he's not so different than the hadas and the lulav. They come together. But what does one have to wait to be shaken up? You could do it in peace and serenity and joy. So therefore, since it's hard for some of you to feel comfortable anywhere, wherever you go you're self-conscious, so I want to invite you to be able to be comfortable and let go and relax and feel that this is your sukkah and your home, because Kol Yisrael Re'uyim Leisha B'Sukkah Achas, and Simcha, it says, is Poiritz Gdorim. It breaks down barriers. And what does the Jewish world today need more than a sukkah where every Jew feels completely at ease, completely at home? How many places are there where so many people feel excluded? How many places are there where so many young men and women feel excluded? And it's irrelevant here, right reasons, wrong reasons, their own imagination, not their own imagination. But how desperately do we need those pockets, geographically and more importantly emotionally, where literally every single type of Jew could feel, this is my home, this is where my soul, where my body, where my distinctive individual personality can find a comfortable place where I can be, where I can grow, where I can sing, where I can dance, where I can celebrate. L'chaim, 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 l'chaim. Bam 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 bam. I wasn't lazy, and I went to check how many types of plants are there in the world. How many types of plants, known plants, exist on our planet? So I checked out the Royal Botanical Gardens, and I saw that they estimate that there are 390,900 types of plants. How many can you name, Mr. Katz?
About 20.
You could name 20, and that's more than most people around there. That's why I asked you. We know cheesecake and babka. They're also plants called wheat. 390,900 types of plants. Around 2,000 of them are edible. Around 200 of them are part of the world's commerce. And around 15 of them are main staples, important staples in human diets. But the one who knows all the names of all the plants, and not only the names, the genetic composition of all the plants, and more, decided that from 390,900 plants to choose 4 to be embraced, taken, and shaken on Sukkot. Now, how many of you would ever know what a hados looks like if not for Sukkot? A harava, an esrog. Today we already make jam, but who would touch an esrog? Who would look at an esrog? Who would look at a lulav? But from 390,000 plus, 4 were chosen. Why? L'kachtem lachem b'yom harishon pri eitz hadar kapus tmarim anaf eitz avois v'arvei nocham. On the first day, you'll forgive me if I translate everything into English, because there are some people sitting here who don't understand the original. And we just spoke about Kol Yisrael Ru'yim Leishav B'Sukkah. We try to have sukkahs where everybody could feel it's their own. You should take on the first day a beautiful fruit from a tree, branch of a palm tree, frond of a palm tree, a myrtle branch which is intertwined, and willows, aravis of a brook, of a nach. Why these 4? So, throughout the generations, for thousands of years, Jews have been discussing this. Why these 4? Al pi pshat, al pi remez, al pi drush, al pi sod, al pi muster, al pi machshove, al pi kabbalah, al pi chassidus. On every level. The Medrash Rabbi, Parshas Emer, on the Pasuk, brings one among many, brings one interesting interpretation. And that is that the 4 species of sukkahs correspond to 4 personalities: Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and Yosef. Not such a known medrash. Avraham is the esrog. Why is Avraham the esrog? Avraham zaken baba yamim, he came in days. V'hadarta pnei zaken, the face of the elderly should be beautified. Avraham is the esrog, the hadar, the beauty. Yitzchak is the lulav. The lulav is kapois tmarim, zog the Gemara in Sukkah, kafos. Kapois could be read kafos. The branches have to be connected to the spine. Yitzchak Avinu Hayakafus al Hara Moriah by the Akedah. Yitzchak allowed himself to be bound up on the altar when Avraham took him for the Akedah. Hadas is Yaakov. Ma Hadas Rachush Ba'alin Kach Yaakov Rachush B'banim. The Hadas is filled with leaves. The Gemara says, Anof of Chayfin es Eitzoi. The leaves cover the stem, the twig. Yaakov Avinu was flooded with children. Like the Hadas with leaves. Avraham had 2, Yitzchak had 2, Yaakov had many. 12 plus daughters, 1 or many daughters. Yosef is the Arava, the willow. Why? Why the willow? You see in your own lulav, you'll check tomorrow morning, you'll see that the Arava already dried up. Maybe not in your lulav, in my lulav. Which is why I changed them yesterday. The Arava always dries up before everybody else. Some mazel of the Arava. Right? Not only do we blame him that he doesn't have a taste, nishkin tam, nishkin reach, garnish. Not only that, he also dies first on the lulav. But Shana Rabbi becomes like Ansa Meyuchis. We give him back his dignity. But, so it says Yosef passed away before his brothers. Vayomas Yosef, v'chol echa, v'chol adarahu. Yosef, that's the Arav. Now obviously the question is, what's the Medrash trying to say? We want to remember Avraham and Yitzchak and Yaakov and Yosef. So we remember them through these 4 minim. The association seems a little far-fetched. And this is how the Medrash sees the reason for these 4. There's another Medrash, a few lines later, that says, this is well more known, that the 4 species correspond different parts of the body. The esrig, doima lelei, looks like a little heart. The lulav is the chut hashedra, the spine. The hadas, the leaf of a hadas looks like an eye, the shape of an eye. And the arava, the leaf of a willow, has the shape of a mouth. Here again you have to understand, what's the concept? The heart, the mouth, the eye, and the spine. So the Medrash says, Kol atzmoi saiterman, Hashem mikamoich. All of my bones, all parts of my body. But these 4 were chosen. It could be a Meshivin al Adrush, that the 2 interpretations in Medrash are not disconnected. They're interconnected. It's not just on Sukkot we want you to remember that you have a heart, and you have a spine, and you have an eye, and you have a mouth, which we don't need Daled Minim for Sukkot. Or we want you to remember Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and Yosef, which again we don't need Daled Minim of Sukkot. But the 2 are connected. On Sukkot, you have to ask yourself, do you have a heart? Do you have an esrog? But whose heart? Avraham's heart. On Sukkot, you have to ask yourself, do you have a spine? But whose spine? Yitzchak's spine. On Sukkot, you have to ask yourself, do you have eyes? But whose eyes? Yaakov's eyes. Hadassim, Yaakov's eyes. And on Sukkot, you have to ask yourself, do you have Yosef's mouth? Do you have a mouth? But whose mouth? Yosef's mouth. The Arava. So the 4 organs of the body of the 4 minim and the 4 persons, the 4 personalities of the Medrash are connected. The esrog we take is not just for a heart, it's Avram's heart. The lulav is not a spine, Yitzchak's spine. The hadas is not just an eye, it's Yaakov's eye. And the Arav is not just a mouth, it's Yosef's mouth. What do we mean by this? There's something called Avram Avinu's heart. We call it in Yiddish, you can't say it better, a Yiddish hearts. Sukkos we call it an esrog. A Yiddish heart, Avram's heart. The Navi Michas says, Titin emes leYaakov, chesed laVram. What's Avram's heart? It's 1949. A Jew walks into shul in the Lower East Side of New York, or in Williamsburg, or in Bronxville, wherever it is in the New York area. He walks into shul, nobody knows him. Nobody recognizes him, no friends, no relatives, he's a complete stranger. But they walk over to him, Shalom Aleichem, from Vanant Kum Tayid, where are you from? Which camps were you in? Did you see my relatives? Which DP camp were you? What are you doing for Parnosa? Do you need a job? Where are you staying? You have where to eat Shabbos. How did you survive? Which shtetl did you come from? Ah, you must have known my uncle. You must have known my brother. He was a shoichet there. What are your plans? You have parnasa. What are you doing tomorrow? What are you doing after tomorrow? Where are you going? 1948, 49. 2017, a Jew walks into shul. The questions are going to be a little different. Thank God the questions are going to be a little different. But the heart won't be different. The heart will still be the same. Shalom Aleichem. V'mana kumt yid. What are you eating? What are you doing? Do you have friends there? Do you need help? Do you have where to eat a Shabbos meal? That's an esrog. That's Avram Avinu's heart. That's not just any heart. That's the heart that sustained the Jewish people. It's the heart of a man who had a tent with 4 doors on all 4 entrances to be able to make every stranger feel hospitable. Vayikra, vayita eshel b'veishava, vayikra sham, b'shem Hashem keloilo. A Yiddish hearts. Sukkos, you have to ask yourself, do you have that heart? I'm going to share with you two little stories, but they contain a lot. One story I heard from a Yid, he's a Rosh Hashiva in Eretz Yisrael. His name is Reb Moshe Tzur. Literally means Moshe the Rock. But Tzur is a common family, Israeli family name. Reb Moshe Tzur was rather a veteran from the Air Force in Israel. He became a Baal Tshuva. And today he founded quite a few yeshivas that he leads. Once heard from him that he became a veteran. He was a veteran of the Israeli Air Force. And he was doing his own thing. Came back to Yiddishkeit. He's an ambitious and talented fellow. He was very successful in the Air Force. And in the early 70s, he related that he was in New York and he went to visit the Lubavitcher Rebbe. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe asked him, what are you doing for the Jewish people? He said he's not really doing anything for the Jewish people. He's worrying about his own life. Most people have a life to live. Somebody got to pay the mortgage, yeah? So the Rebbe told him, what's with the mitzvah of Ahavta l'recha kamoicha kol Yisrael arevim zeh b'zeh? Every Jew is responsible for the Jewish people. Every Jew ought to love another Jew. You have talent, you have skill, you have ambition. Become a leader. Do things for the Jewish people. The Jewish people need healing. The Jewish people need guidance. The Jewish people need inspiration. So he was, he was respectful, but it's a gekwenkeld. Wie sagt man gekwenkeld? He was, you know how it is when you want to be a gentleman and you don't want to really argue with the person. He's like, okay, point well taken. You mean well. She said, the Rebbe looked at him and said, I want to ask you a question. Which limb in the body is most important after the brain? He didn't know where he's going. He says, the heart, of course. And he said, on which side is the heart? He says, the left side. He says, I don't understand. In Judaism, which is the more important side? The right side or the left side? The right side? How do you know? Yosef was upset when Yaakov takes his left hand and puts it on his oldest son. The oldest son needs the right hand, not the left hand. Tefillin you put on with the right hand, on the weak hand, Yad Keya. Mezuzah, you put it derech b'yoschi, you put it on the right. You do things on the right. Kolpin is shata poina, the Mishnah says, liyamin, we go right. Leiv chacham, liyaminoi, leiv ksilis smoila. So he says, Reb Moshe, I have a question. Why did Hashem create the human body? That the heart, from which hanefesh, ki nefesh habasa bedami, hadam hu hanefesh. The blood comes and gets pumped from the heart. That's where the soul is, that's where life is. The nefesh. Why is it on the left side, not on the right side? He was smart enough not to answer the question. He said, I don't know. That's how the body works. You have a heart that works, you're thankful. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe told him, Hart Avort. That's what's called a Yiddish hearts. He says, the truth is that the heart is not on the left side. The heart is on the right side. You know why? Because a Jewish heart, the heart, you know what its function is? Its function is to feel what's going on in the life of the person who's standing right in front of you. So the function of my heart is to empathize and to experience what's going on with you. And you're standing right in front of me, and it's on your right side. Because my left, as we say by Tefillin, Yemin HaKoyre, Yemin HaMeniach, Smoil HaKoyre, Smoil HaMeniach, my left is your right. The function of my heart is not only to feel me, it's to experience you. And for you, it's on the right side. That's what a heart is. Don't be satisfied with yourself. Let your heart feel the Jewish people. He said it changed his life. He built like 6 or 7 schools, 6 or 7 yeshivas that are very successful in Eretz Yisrael as a result of that conversation. But it's true in every one of our lives in our own way. What's happening with my heart, the esrog? I'll tell you something. I read this a little while ago. It moved me very deeply. I don't want to forget the lulav and the hadis and the arava, but I want to share this with you. There's a group in New York. It's called Right On Israel. Right On Israel. They train teenagers from like more modern Orthodox circles who are going to university and college to be able to defend the Jewish homeland, because on campuses and university there's terrible, venomous rhetoric against Eretz Yisrael constantly, like non-stop. So they go on a trip for a few weeks to Israel, and they inspire, they visit. In 2011, a group of 50 kids went, and they were visiting the land for 3 weeks. On the last day, before their flight back to New York, they visited the military section, the graves of soldiers on Mount Herzl, near Yerushalayim, and they were looking around the graves of soldiers who were killed in all the wars, 48, 56, 67, 73, 82, etc. One of the boys walks around, he's walking around, just, checking out the scene, and he sees a father and a mother, it looked like a father and a mother, a man and a woman standing at a grave, and weeping profusely. So this boy, he wasn't bashful, he walked over to them, said, "Shalom, my name is so-and-so. What is your name?" Name is Mr. and Mrs. Derry. Daled Reish Ayin Yud Derry. What brings you here? The mother points, this is the grave of our son. On the tombstone it says, Erez Derry Zechrona Livracha. He was a 19-year-old boy, and he went into Jenin. You remember maybe, after the Oslo agreements, the suicide bombing started non-stop. Every day, every week, in schools and pizza shops and cafes and basketball fields and hotels, in the streets, wherever. Hundreds, thousands were killed and maimed. And finally, Sharon sent the boys, the soldiers, into Jenin, from which a disproportionate amount of suicide bombers were being dispatched daily. 23 of our boys were killed that day, and then they blamed the Jews that they made a massacre, as usual. Our boy was 19 or 20 years old, and he was killed in Jenin. And he's buried here. They destroyed our family, the mother says. And last night, I had a dream. And in the dream, my son, Erez, came to me. This is 5 years after he was killed. And he says, "Mother, Ima, why are you so depressed?" So she says, "Why I'm so depressed? You would have been today 26 years old. My whole life, your father and I were hoping that we're going to bring you under the chuppah. We're going to marry you off. And we're going to see a future through you. We're going to see a beautiful life, build a family. And your life was cut down. The flower was just nipped in the bud at such a young age. I can't come back to myself." So he says, "Ima, by Jews, there's 2 things that you carry under a chuppah. A groom and a bride, a chatan and a kala, a chassid and a kala. But there's one more thing that you carry under a chuppah, and that is a Sefer Torah, a Torah scroll. You finish a Torah, you dance with it under the chuppah, and you bring it to shul. I know you can't bring me under the chuppah, because I'm in the next world. But why don't you write a Torah for me, finish it, you'll bring it under a chuppah to a shul, everybody will dance with a Torah under the chuppah. I'm a groom, I'm called a chassan, the Torah is also called a chassan, and that will be a good substitute." This is the dream. She wakes up, she wakes up her husband and she tells him about the dream. There's only one challenge. It's a secular family, she says. We don't know what writing a Sefer Torah is, who writes it, how you write it, finish it. We never heard of this. We're not part of this culture. So we didn't know what to do. So we decided to come to the grave of our son to ask God to help us find meaning in the dream. So I'm talking here to my son. I'm saying, Erez, please help us. Please help us. Oops, I'm nigging, brother. Please help us. This teenage boy, to his credit, tells the mother, wait a moment. I'm just so still, just a little while. He goes back to the director of the group. His name is Rabbi Yutuv Eliach. And he says, Rabbi, how much does it cost to write a Sefer Torah? How much does it cost? So he says, $35,000, $40,000. Around $35,000 you can get a Sefer Torah. He gets up, he brings the whole group together, he tells them the story, and he says, listen, his parents, bereaved parents, they came to the grave of their son. He tells them the whole story. I say that we sponsor the Sefer Torah for Erez. How much is it going to cost each of us? Around $750. He makes a calculation, something there. Who wants to do this? They all raised their hand. Some of the boys had some extra pocket money, so they right away gave the money. Others said they'll go back and they'll raise $750,000. It's not the end of the world. A parent, an uncle, a zayda, a baba, a friend, $750. He calls over the parents and he says, your Sefer Torah is on us. We will go back to America. We will have it written. We will have it concluded. And we will sponsor it. They go back to America. The next year, the Sefer Torah is finished. The boys come back to Eretz Yisrael. They participate in the Siyum Sefer Torah in the community where they live in Ma'ale Adumim. The Sefer Torah is led under a chuppah to the shul, which is part of their community. There's dancing and dancing and dancing. And at the Suda, at the meal, the mother speaks. And the mother says, listen, I'm not religious. And I'm not the superstitious type. But I just want to tell you, when they were dancing with that Sefer Torah under the chuppah, I felt like I was holding my son and dancing with him under the chuppah. A few months later, his younger brother, Erez, his younger brother, got engaged. He was very broken all these years. The family was shattered. A few months later, he got engaged. He rebuilt his life. Here you have a classic example of the heart, the Jewish heart. The esrig that captures the heart of whom? Of Avram Avinu. Avram Oyavi. Chesed LaAvram. Then there's a spine. Oh, you can have a heart but not a spine. Sukkot, you have to ask yourself if you have a spine. Whose spine? Yitzchak's spine. What's the spine of Yitzchak? It's the sense of confidence, of pride that was represented by Yitzchak, who was ready to sacrifice his life. Vayelchu shneim yachdav. When he hears that he's going to be the sheep for the oila, he doesn't duck, he doesn't run. With resolve, with unwavering strength, he's ready to make the sacrifice. B'koima skufa, with full stature, an erect spine, tremendous toikev, tremendous potency. Vayelchu shneim yachdav. Kafus, kapus tmarim. The question we have to ask ourselves, Sukkot, is, do we have a spine? Are you always apologizing for your existence? Some Jews are always apologizing for being Jewish. They're always embarrassed. They're always ashamed. Even people that wear streimlich, mit bekishes, mit geitlach, they're not ashamed in their shul, but somewhere else, they become ashamed. Ish Yehudi haya b'Shushan Abira u'shmai Mardechai. Ask Rabbi Yonis in Eibschitz, there was only one Jew in Shushan Abira? It's like saying, Ish Yehudi haya b'New York City. Really? Only one Jew? So Rabbi Yonis in Eibschitz teaches, Ish Yehudi haya b'Shushan Abira u'shmai Mardechai. There were many Jews, but there was one Jew in Shushan Abiri, he was a Jew. Ah, that's a little different. In Shushan Abira, in the capital of Shushan, he was the same Jew. Sometimes Jews become defensive, meek, bent, repressed. They apologize for themselves. They apologize for their homeland. They apologize for their strength. Somebody once said, how do you know somebody is a Jew? When he makes a fist, the next step is a shamnu, bagatnu, gazalnu. This past Yom Kippur, Jews made fist, and 10 times, al chet, al chet, al chet, al chet. Somebody else makes a fist, you go check out your nose by the doctor the next day, maybe broken. A nose or a rib. But sometimes we make fists and right away we're apologizing. The spine of Yitzchak, you have to ask yourself is, do you have genuine confidence in your life? Do you have a spine, a healthy spine, that's not bent, not crushed, not repressed, not spiritually, not psychologically, and not emotionally? Then there's eyes. Whose eyes? Ahadas. Ahadas is also an eye. Anaf Eitzavos. Yaakov was rochush bebonim, filled with children. What type of eyes? There's eyes and there are eyes. Helen Keller was blind and deaf, and yet she had an extraordinary impact. She learned to communicate. She learned to write books. I once read a line by her. She said, the only thing that's more painful than not having eyesight is when you have eyesight but you don't have vision. There's people who have eyesight but they don't have vision. They say a good joke. Moshe Dayan was Israel's defense minister. He had a patch on his eye, you remember? He had a patch on his eye. So he was once driving on an Israeli highway, and Kaminig, Israeli driver, is 150 kilometers per hour, which is pretty slow in Israel. So a policeman stops him, says, Dayan, you're the general, you're the defense minister, I should quadruple your summons. You're driving like a madman. Your ticket should be 5 times the amount, because you're supposed to be a role model. He looks at the policeman, he says, Adoni Ashotem, my dear officer, you look at me. I have one eye. Now what would you like me to do with this eye? Look at the speedometer or look at the highway? Yeah. Some people, their whole life, they look at the speedometer. They never see the highway. What type of eyes do you have to have? Yaakov Avinu's eyes. What were Yaakov Avinu's eyes? He had a good life. He was married. He had a huge family. He was living by the father-in-law. He didn't have to take responsibility. He was successful. He was wealthy. Everything was good. And one day he wakes up and he tells his father-in-law, Vayoyme Yaakov Elavot, Shalcheni, enough is enough. 20 years by the Shver and the Shviga is enough. I'm out. I'm out. He calls his wife, Rachel and Leah, from the field, and he says, I looked, Vayar Yaakov es Pnei Lavan. He saw the face of Lavan. He saw it's not good. He tells his wives, I looked at your father. I saw. What exactly did he see? He saw one thing. Today my kids are young. Everything is dandy. But do my children have a future here? Will my children have a future in this house? Surrounded by a grandfather who's a crook, mitah ganev, mitah shaker, mitah gazlan, hechlefes maskurti aseres moinim, bikish lakeres akoil, lovan harami. In this environment of my father-in-law, will I be able to give my children what I have to give my children? He saw the future. He saw the future and he said, we're out. He uprooted himself. We're going to go to one old man, my old father, Yitzchak, living in Eretz Yisrael. That's where I'm going to bring my family. Vayisa Yaakov Esainov, Vayar, he saw. Some people have eyesight, but they have no vision. They sell their lives for comfort in the present, and they forfeit, they abandon their future. Some people sitting right here, you know what I'm talking about, in our own lives. We do things that are comfortable right now. We sacrifice our marriage, we sacrifice our children, we sacrifice our relationship with our children. We sacrifice what really matters just for what feels or looks good right now. Whether it's physical, material, spiritual, emotional, whatever it is. Do I have Yaakov Avinu's eyes, the Hadas? And finally, there's the mouth. Whose mouth? Not any mouth. Yosef's mouth. What's Yosef's mouth? The Arava. You remember what Yosef said when he met his brothers after 22 years. He revealed himself to his brothers. Nivhalu, they're astonished. They can't believe this is their brother, the prime minister of Egypt. Their little baby brother, who they used to make fun of, suddenly is the most powerful person in the world after Pareh. They can't believe it. What does Yosef tell them in Parshas Vayigash? V'hinei einechem royos, ve'einei binyamin achi ki. The machs mit den Kopf, so finish the pasuk. Atazai. Almost. Ki fi hamedaber aleichem. Aleichem, aleichem. You see, my mouth is speaking to you. I want to ask you a question. When you see somebody's mouth speaking to you, you know that he's your brother? Ki pi hamedaber aleichem. What does that mean? Ki pi, so Rashi says, Lashon Kodesh. I ask you, no Egyptian could have known Hebrew. Today, many Jews don't know Hebrew, and many Egyptians know Hebrew. Many Jews don't know a word of Hebrew, or even Lashon Kodesh. Lashon Kodesh is not Hebrew, and many non-Jews know it. Many Arabs know a good Hebrew and a Lashon Kodesh. So you speak Lashon Kodesh. Ki fi hamedaber aleich. Rashi doesn't only mean Lashon Kodesh. Rashi means, you see, as a chreda Yiddish sprach. You see, I speak a Jewish language. There's some things, if you grew up in a certain family, there's certain things only you and your brothers know. There's a sprach. You know, you had the same Jacobson, the same parents to deal with, the same problems, the same idiosyncrasies, the same shtick. There's a certain, what's called in Yiddish, a gemeinsame Sprach. A gemeinsame Sprach. Ich will doch reden a Yiddische Sprach. A gemeinsame Sprach means we call it in English, a common language. It's not just words. It's not just vocabulary. It's a style. It's the soul of what you say. It's the quips. It's the expressions. They heard right away that Yosef knows things that the Prime Minister of Egypt doesn't know if he didn't grow up in the house, in the Weltanschauung, in the Hashkofe, in the Kedusha, in the Dalet Amos of Yaakov Avinu. Pasuk says it. We say it in the Shir Shel Yom of Thursday, Tehillim 81. Eidus bi Yosef Samai b'tzeise al Eretz Mitzrayim Sfas lo yodati eshma. Pari says, I know this is Yosef, it's unique, I hear a language that I don't know. Rashi says about Yosef, Shem Shamayim Shogur B'fiv. When he wants to tell his father that he's alive, how does he prove it to him? He's still learning the sugya they learned 22 years ago. Egla Arufa. Kifi Amedaber Aleichem. Ich hab the Sprach, I have the language. And that's the question. Do you have Yosef's Sprach, Yosef's language? How do you speak? How do you speak to your wife? How do you speak to your children? How do you speak to other people? What type of language do you have? What type of words do you have? People sometimes speak with crudeness, with anger, with lowliness, with bruteness, with vulgarity to themselves, to their friends. Do you have Yosef's language? Sfas lo yadati eshma. He's in Egypt in Ervas Haaretz, but he has the language, the Pi Medaber Aleichem of Yosef. What type of language do you have? How do you speak to your children? When they want to copy their father or their mother, what do they say when they're talking amongst themselves? You can sometimes hear things that you say that you don't realize you say. What's the language that you use? The edelkeit, the purity, the dignity, the majesty that comes out through language. And it's interesting. The Arava dies before the other ones because Jews never hold on to a language. Who here knows Ladino? Anybody knows Ladino? Anybody knows Esperanto? Anybody knows Aramaic? Everybody knew Aramaic. But today, not everybody knows Aramaic. Yiddish, everybody spoke Yiddish. Today, only half of Muncie speaks Yiddish. The other half doesn't speak Yiddish. Even I'm not speaking in Yiddish. Ich kann mich kein reden, ganz a glanzedig in Yiddish. Ich hab lieb reden auf Yiddish. Aber ich will das alles auch verstehen. Ich will kol Yisrael Ruyim Leisha Besukachas. Darf ich nicht reden auf English. So the Arava dies, but it's not the language, it's what the language carries in it. You could speak Yiddish like a goy, and you could speak English like a Yid. I've heard it. They say there was once a Jew who needed Parnassus. So he converted, he became a priest. So the next Sunday he gave a sermon in the church, so the cardinal came to hear him. So afterwards the Jew goes over to the cardinal, he says, no, how was it? How was my sermon? He says, it was excellent. But you don't have to start next week, hi, my fellow goyim. You could learn to change the language. It's not, the language is important. The language is important. The language is like, Rabbi Yosheber once said, the language is like the mantle of a Sefer Torah. The mantle of a Sefer Torah is holy. We kiss it. But it's not the Sefer Torah. You could change coats on the Sefer Torah. There's the Sefer Torah, and there's the mantle of the Sefer Torah. Yiddish is the mantle of the Sefer Torah, the language that Jews spoke for thousands of years. They conversed in it, they laughed in it, they cried, they davened, they learned. It's holy, but don't confuse it with the Torah. The Yiddishisten turned Yiddish into a religion. I grew up with the Yiddishisten. Those who know my history, I knew the Yiddishisten very well. The Yiddishisten turned Yiddish into a god. A language is not a god, but a language could carry a Sefer Torah. Eidus b'hoisef svas lo yodati eshma. And if I'm already saying that word, I'll tell you what I heard from Rabbi Aaron Reich in Lakewood, son-in-law of Reb Shnei Kotler Zatzal. So he told me, Rabbi Aaron Reich is Rosh Hashiva in Lakewood, so he told me a word once, B'Shem the Beis Yisrael, the Geri Rebbe, who heard it from a literature of. Why was Pari so impressed with Yosef? What did Yosef say already? Yosef said, you had a dream, fat cows, being eaten up by skinny cows. No, ask any child, what does a fat cow mean? They call people fat cows. In yeshiva, they never called you a fat cow. It means you eat a lot. You don't stop eating. That's part of the Lashon Nakiya, the Yiddish Sprach. Stop behema. That's real the Yiddish Sprach, right? Builds up everybody's spine, and it's a Jewish heart. It's all the Daled Minim zusammen with the Hishainis in the Erd. The 5 Hishainis in the Erd. Okay. What's a fat cow? You eat a lot. What's a skinny cow? You're emaciated. Your mother doesn't know how to cook. There was once a woman teacher, she asked the kids in class, do you do prayers before food, before you eat? So the boy says, no, my mother knows how to cook. A fat cow, you eat a lot. No, the fat cow gets eaten by a skinny cow. What does it mean? There's going to be a hunger. Paro is blown away. What was he blown away? Pari was used to, everybody was an expert on everything. He had a dream right away, the Khartoumin right away knew why, this problem, that problem, that problem. First man in history ever met, Yosef. He says, no, tell me. They say that you know how to interpret a dream. Yosef says, Bilodoi. Sorry, I don't know. Elikim Yana Shleim Pari. God knows, I don't know. Pari says, Sfas lo yadati eshma. The first time I heard somebody say, Ich weiß nicht, I don't know. He was blown away. I have to say, I sometimes feel exactly like Parai. We live in an environment where everybody knows the reasons for everything. Why did this happen? He knows. Why did this happen? She knows. Suddenly Parai heard, Sfas lo yadati. Somebody says, Ich weiß nicht, I don't know. Wow. You don't know? When you don't know, you give dignity to pain. Don't know right away. First, don't know. Ignorance is usually far more authentic than wisdom. Einstein said two things are infinite, the universe and stupidity, and the latter is more infinite than the former. The genesis of all knowledge is the acknowledgement of lo yadati. I don't know. That's also part of Yosef's language. It's also a Yiddish Sprach. Ich weiß nicht. Ich weiß nicht. I don't know. I don't know. So Tayre Yidin, my dear friends, on Sukkos ulekachtem lochem. Hashem says, I want you to embrace for yourself from 390,900 plants, you remember? I want you to embrace 4 types of plants. I want you to ask yourself what is happening with your heart. Do you have Avram's heart? Do you have an Esrog? What's happening with your spine? Do you have a spine? Do you have Yitzchak's spine? What's happening with your eyes? Do you have Yaakov Avinu's vision? Are you losing your future because of your ego and ignorance and temptation in the present? And finally, do you have an Arava? Do you have Yosef's mouth? Do you have Yosef's language that always brings estranged brothers together? L'chaim, l'chaim. hands to tell you I was over here, but it's all good. Tired of Eden.
Why don't we pass the way to play lower because we're neighbors and door? Just go until the police come, right?
The mila of sitting in this sukkah in this weather is that with the sweat we'll be able to have nisach hamayim. The water is already pouring and pouring and pouring. So mainly we have nisach hamayim and mahatech nisach hayayin. So it's all good. The more you sweat, the more nisach hamayim, the more Simchas Beis Hashoava. The question is asked, mach sich bequem, you could sit down, was darf da stehen? Make yourself comfortable, you could sit down over there. I have here a whole head table they left me. If I don't know, I don't need such a spashtus. Anybody who considers themselves humble could come sit here. The question is asked, the Mishnah says in Masechta Sukkah, the 5th chapter, Amru Mishal Ira Simchas Beis Hashoava Ira Simcha Miyamav. Whoever did not observe the Simcha of Beis Hashoava, which was the dancing in the Beis Hamikdash every night of Sukkot, almost every night of Sukkot, till the wee hours of the morning, from afternoon, from after Talmud Shel Bein Arbayim, all the way till the morning, hours on end, dancing and singing and playing music and vocalists and acrobats and juggling. And all types of somersaults and a display of tremendous simcha with lighting up the whole Yerushalayim as described at length in Perek HaChalul, the 5th chapter of Sukkah, at length in Bavli and Yerushalmi. So the Gemara, the Mishnah, Chazal say, whoever didn't see this simcha, lo yira simcha miyamav. He never saw happiness in his whole life, which is a very strange observation. None of us sitting in this Sukkah saw Simchas Beis Hashoava in the Beis HaMikdash. I hope we'll see Simchas Beis Hashoava in the Beis HaMikdash. So what is the meaning? Lo simcha miyamav. You can't see any simcha in your whole life if you didn't see Simchas Beis Hashoava. And even a Jew living at that time, if they didn't see Simchas Beis Hashoava, they couldn't see simcha, they couldn't experience simcha. A person has a baby, he's happy. Some people get married, they're happy. We hope all people that get married are happy. There's so many celebrations in life, milestones in life, whether they're personal, familial, tribal, national, the entire nation, the entire people. Really, simcha miyama. There's also a mitzvah b'samachta b'chagecha, Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot. Without Simchas Beis Hashoava, come Chazal and make a statement, such a sharp statement. It's almost impossible if you did not see Simchas Beis Hashoava, simcha miyama. Well, how do you understand this? So there are many, many interpretations to this. But tonight, Simchas Beis Hashoava here in the Sukkah on Forshei, I want to share one interpretation. One pirush from many pirushim. This is a big sugya, it's a deep sugya, Sayin Pshat, and Sayin Remez, and Sayin Drush, and Sayin Sod, and Sayin Musa, and Sayin Chassidus, but I'll pick one pirush. One explanation in this possibly is B'Hakdama, by asking another question. Jews always answer a question by asking another question. We don't answer questions, we just add questions, and we hope by the time we get to the 12th question, you forgot the first one. That's basically what a good shiur looks like. We'll try to get back to the first question. And that is, B'chlal, the whole Simcha is a very strange concept, is a strange phenomenon. It's called Simchas Beis Hashoava. So the Gemara says, why is it called Simchas Beis Hashoava? Sukkah Daf Nun. Some of you must have learned it. So the Gemara says, because the Pasuk says in Yeshaya, it's two shittas, But one shit is, it says, "Sha'aftem mayim b'sasim imayne Yeshua." You should draw water with joy from the well springs of Yeshua of salvation. So from here we learn that she'ivas hamayim, the drawing of the water every morning of Sukkot, had to be done with joy. The mitzvah was that every morning of Sukkot, right at dawn, a procession would go down from the Rabbi, from the Temple Mount, to this wellspring called Shiloach, and there they would fill up a flask of water, a tzloichis, a flask of water that contained 3 lugan, bring it back up to the Beis HaMikdash, and right in the morning after sunrise, when they offered the Tamid Shel Shachar, the lamb in the morning, the Kohen would go up and pour wine on the altar every day. On the 7 days of Sukkot, in addition to pouring wine, the Kohen would also pour water on the Mizbeach. This was called Nisach HaMayim. It doesn't say in Chumash, but it's Halacha L'Moshe Messina. Says the Pasuk, Sha'aftem mayim b'sasim. A whole night preceding the drawing of the water in the morning before sunrise, they danced, and then not only danced, they danced in such an ecstatic and uninhibited fashion that Chazal say Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, the Nasi of the Sanhedrin, would juggle 8 torches of fire and then make headstands. And some of the greatest Tanoim would juggle, and it was completely an infinite joy, an infinite simcha. Why? For what? The whole Yerushalayim was lit up. Isha b'reres chitim lo Simchas Beis Hashoava. Gemara says a woman could refine, could select her wheat, could clean her wheat from the dirt, from the chaff, from the light of Simchas Beis Hashoava. Remember, this is before Thomas Edison. There's no electricity. There's no light that we have here. All from the menorahs, from the candelabras, 70 feet tall, that the Pirchei Kohuna lit from the wicks that came from the pants of the Kohanim and from their belts. And the menorahs, they had menorahs with oil that lit up the whole city. And you say, what was this whole simcha about? What was it for? Pouring of water. On the contrary, pouring of wine didn't create simcha. You'll ask a person, what creates joy, wine or water? I've heard people say, I had a very bad night last night, so I went out for a drink. I drank 8 shots of wine, I was completely inebriated, I fell asleep, I slept like a baby. I never heard anybody say, Rabbi, why? I was really upset last night. So I went out, I had 8 shots of water. It was amazing. I was smashed from the water and I slept and my life was wonderful. Your nutritionist gets happy if you drink 8 glasses of water, but you don't get happy from 8 glasses of water. It may be good for your health, but it's not good for your moods. Wine, herich. It's not only my invention, it's a pasuk in pasuk in Tehillim. V'yayin yisamach levav enesh. And in Kuf Dalet, Parchi Nafsh. In Sefer Shoftim, it says, Yayin mesameach elokim v'anoshem. It brings joy kivayachol to Hashem and to people. However you explain what mesameach. And from here we learn, the Gemara says, Einoim nim shira, ela ala yayin. Shira is on yayin. Yayin is associated with joy. People drink, sometimes too much, but you all know what I'm talking about. Mayim, water, you drink. Water quenches your thirst, it makes sure your body is not dehydrated, chas v'shalom. They poured the wine every morning. They poured the wine and everything went on. They had their regular concert, the Levim, was a beautiful concert. They poured the Mayim. Ooh, here. The oilam went out of the kelim. Here there was a simcha that was infinite, that was unique. What's the meaning of this? Why? What's the pshat? What's the havan? Here also there are many interpretations, but I'm going to offer one, and I think it's very fundamental, especially for today's time and for this sukkahs. And that is, wine has a power to affect people's moods. People drink, especially if they drink a little too much, it affects your moods. It affects your chemicals, affects your brain cells, it affects your neurons, it affects your mood. The Gemara says in Erevin, Nichnas Yayin, Yotzasoit. People drink, you get inebriated, and the secrets come out. Things you don't say a whole year, you say when you're drunk. Chayavinish l'psume b'puri, zakrashi, megillah dav zayin, l'b'sume, b'yayin, adel lo'yada ben aram l'barach mardachai. Rashi doesn't say you're supposed to drink water, adel lo'yada. You know why? Because when you drink water, you're not going to be adel lo'yada. I've been drinking water all night here because I'm sweating. So together with the nisach hamayim of my sweat, I'm doing nisach hamayim with the bottles, a little different type of nisach hamayim. But it's not yet Yotzasoit. If they'll bring the other mayim, Avshivat Yotzasoit. But the Devaila have only this mayim. Takazagan al l'chaim, 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 l'chaim. Wine is a product, is a type of beverage, it's a liquid. It's what we call in English an external stimulant. An external stimulant means a chitzoni is the trigger. It's something outside of you that can affect your mood, which is why people drink. It's why people drink, it's why people eat, it's why people do other things in order to stimulate themselves, to numb their pain, to give themselves distractions, entertainment, and so forth. But then there's something called water. What is water? Water essentially is the staple of life. Oh, we have now a third Nisach HaMayim. Gewaldig. Okay? So we're doing Nisach HaMayim. So Hashem is doing Nisach HaMayim. You can't get any better. The main thing is that you people shouldn't be nispal. Don't get nispal. It's fine. Kol Yisrael Ruyim Leisha B'Sukkah Achas. If you're going to be a mitztayer, then if you stay here, you're going to be called a hedyot. But if the tainug of sitting and Farbengen in a sukkah is going to be so powerful, you won't be a mitztayer, so all the dinim of mitztayer won't be chal on you. That's what the Minchas Elazar explains in Shas Chuvas Minchas Elazar about sitting in a sukkah when it rains. So I'm punkt explaining what the joy of Mayim is, so we have a little Mayim to be able to illustrate. So I thank whoever orchestrated this. Water is the staple of life. If you look at your body, 70, almost 90% of each of your cells, how many cells do you have? Close to 100 trillion cells. Almost 90% of your cell is made up of water. Most of your body is water. And around the cell is also water. We grow up in the amniotic sac in water. Water is the staple of life. The reason we could live on this planet is because there's water. That's why NASA, whenever they look for extraterrestrial life, they look at life, they always say, you follow the water. Where there's water, you're going to find life. Water is the staple of life. The pouring of water, as the Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah, Daf Tazayin, Rabbi Akiva says, why do we pour water on sukkahs? Kadeshi Yisbarchu Gishmei Shana. The pouring of the water represents the rain. It represents all the water on our planet that we desperately need to live. The joy of Nisach HaMayim is not the joy of an external stimulant. It's the joy of life itself. The joy of living, which develops, is supported, and is represented by water. Here's the question. I know you can get drunk from drinking wine. I know you can even get in a good mood from drinking. People go to Kiddush clubs, they're stressed out, they drink, and suddenly they're jolly and they're making jokes. But that's not what life is. The question is, can you get drunk from water? Meaning, can you get drunk from life itself? Can you get drunk on life? That's the question. Not if you could get drunk on wine. Could you get drunk on life? Can just living intoxicate you? Just the experience of life. Somebody once shared with me a story. I appreciated it so much. I printed it out. I wanted to share it with you. There was a school, a high school in Chicago, a junior high school in Chicago. They were studying the 7 wonders of the world, what are considered the most spectacular locations and achievements, creations, or natural creations in the world. So at the end of the lesson, the teacher asked the students to write down what they consider from all of their knowledge and studies to be their own 7 wonders of the world. So there were disagreements and debates, but basically the students started to give in their notes, and it emerged that most of them, as the 7 wonders they put down, Egypt's great pyramids, that we also take credit for, the hanging gardens of Babylon, of Babylonia, of Iraq, the Grand Canyon in Arizona, the Panama Canal, the Great Barrier Reef, where I was once, the Lighthouse of Alexandria, and China's Great Wall. Okay, some people argued and they wanted to replace the Panama Canal with the Empire State Building or the Victoria Falls or the polar ice caps. There were some arguments, but more or less these were the 7 wonders of the world. While the teacher was gathering all the notes, she noticed that one student, a quiet girl, hasn't finished her writing yet. So the teacher asked the girl if she was having trouble with her list, if she needed help. Maybe she didn't remember from classes all the 7 wonders. She didn't have the experience of life to be able to travel. She said, maybe you need some help. So the girl said, yes, I need help. The teacher says, what type of help do you need? She says, I can't really make up my mind what the 7 wonders of the world are because there are so many. So the teacher says, where do you have so many? Like, how many? She's like, dozens and dozens. The teacher is like, really? Like, let me help you. Like, what are your wonders? The girl says, I'm having a problem compressing it into 7. But I'll give you my list. And she says, I think the 7 wonders of the world are, number 1, to touch. Number 2, to taste. Number 3, to see. Number 4, to hear. Number 5, to feel. Number 6, to laugh. Number 7, to love. The room was quiet. You can hear a pin's drop. So there are people who travel the world to find wonder. There are people who drink wine to find happiness. The question is, could you get drunk on life? Can you get drunk from saying Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Shehakol Niya B'Dvarei? Everything is a miracle. To touch, to feel, to see, to hear, to love. You understand why her 7 were difficult, why it was difficult for her to compress it in 7. That's Nisuch HaMayim. So Chazal say, Misha lo yirah Simchas Beis Hashoava, lo yirah Simcha Miyamav. It doesn't only mean if you weren't there, you could never be happy. It means whoever did not appreciate, whoever can't appreciate the simcha of pouring water, will never be able to be happy in life, because they'll always be looking for the next high, for the next drink, for the next Danish, for the next website, for the next vacation, for the next raise in their salary, for the next chasana, for the next action, for the next distraction. Action, distraction. They're always looking for their wine, whatever wine means for you. For this one, it means taking out your smartphone while I'm talking so you distract yourself so you don't get bored, chas v'shalom, from my Nisuch HaMayim. For another person, it means surfing the web. But the main thing is, you always have your wine that distracts you. Lo yirah simcha miyamav. You'll never be able to find happiness. You're always looking for something outside of you to be able to impact you. Because you never saw Simchas Beis Hashoava. But if you saw Simchas Beis Hashoava, then every moment is a miracle. You could look at a leaf and start crying. You could look at a bee and become ecstatic. You could look up and see the rain falling and wow. You can go to the bathroom and say, you can eat an apple and you talk about Elokeinu Melech Haolam Boire creates. You think about the miracle of a tree. You could see a lightning and say, Oise Maise Bereshis. Hear a thunder and say, Shekoiche Gurasim Alei Olam. See the moon and melt in ecstasy. See the sun set and the moon rise. You could come home to your wife in the evening and see her just like you saw her on the wedding day. New person. You come home from work and you see your child, it's as though your child was born that day. Nisuch HaMayim. Misha lo yirah Simchas Beis Hashoava. We're always looking for the next high. For the next action, No, which sukkah is happening? Where's there a party tonight? Rabbi Jacobson is doing a party. Good, I'm going to come. I'm happy that you came. I don't mean you should leave. You come, but I want you to understand what I'm saying. You don't... Happiness, you have to... You have to find your own water. And the water is very boring. It's very common. It's not a thriller. Water is not expensive. Wine is expensive. Wine is a delicacy. Wine is a royal drink, especially if you're a maven, if you're a connoisseur, if you're a feinschmecker. Water, there's no feinschmeckers in water. Today there's already, feinschmeckers. This type of spring water. Feinschmeckers today on everything. Feinschmeckers on cholent already also. There's even feinschmeckers on kishka. But normal people are not feinschmeckers on water. Water is water. Water you drink to live. Wine is a delicacy. Special bracha, by the priyagefen, shira. Do you get excited from the delicacies of life? Or can you get excited from the mundane, daily routines of life? Simchas Beis Hashoava. The question is how. That's a good question. For this, Daf Menayin our Mishnah. For this, we have to learn our Mishnah. The Mishnah says in Masechta Brachos, Hashoyse Mayim Litzmoi, Mevarich, Shahakal Niyah B'Dvarim. If you drink water when you're thirsty, you make a shahakal. What does this mean? Everything you eat or you drink, before you eat or drink, you have to make a blessing, a bracha to Hashem, as the Gemara explains in Brachos. Hashemayim Shemayim Lashem, Varetz Nasal V'Nadam, Kam Kodim Bracha, Kam Lacha Bracha, Brachos Lamed. There's one exception, water. Water is not considered a beverage that's enjoyable. Thus, if you drink water simply to get something down your throat, something is stuck, or for social reasons, or to get a tablet down your throat, you don't have to make a bracha. Are you drinking water? There's no birchas hanen, it's not considered an enjoyable beverage. You drink orange juice, you drink wine, you drink grape juice, you drink mango juice, you drink whatever you drink, grapefruit juice, apple juice. You make a blessing. Why do you make a blessing? It's a hana, there's a joy here. Water is considered in halacha tasteless. So when do you make a bracha on water? Hashoyse mayim litzmoi. If you're thirsty, there's nothing as delicious as water. If you have been in the desert for 2 days, or you have been in a hot sun, if you have been on a hike for 8 hours, you remember? And you forgot your water, and then somebody gives you a cup of water, you get drunk from the water. You don't need anything else. Hashoyse mayim litzmoi is up the Mishnah. Mevarach shakal niyah b'dvarei. Because you're thirsty. When a person is thirsty, when they're dehydrated, there's nothing like a cup of water. There's nothing as delicious and as powerful and as intoxicating and as enjoyable as a cup of water. But for that, you have to be thirsty. This is in halach. But the same is true also in avodas Hashem. The same is true spiritually. The same is true as in ruchnius. And that is, if somebody is thirsty for truth, if somebody is thirsty for meaning, if somebody is thirsty to touch the divine, if somebody is thirsty to live a truthful life, then water becomes the most enjoyable thing. Meaning every moment of life contains tremendous joy because it contains tremendous opportunity to introduce meaning and to connect to Hashem. And therefore there's no moment that's devoid of joy. The daily grind, the daily routine, you come home, you go to work, you go to shul, you go here, you go to yeshiva, you go to Beis Medrash, and you're bored, you're simply bored, and you're looking for the wine. But if you're tzameh, if you're thirsty for truth, if you're thirsty for a high, then not water. But if you're thirsty, litzmoi, sama lecha nafshi, kama lecha besari, like tzameh lalechem, like rav lalechem, like tzameh lamayim, kim l'shmayas dvar Hashem. If you have real tzimon, if you have thirst for truth, you find truth in the person you're talking to right now. You find truth in the moment that exists right now. You find truth in your responsibilities right now. You find truth in the opportunities you have right here at this moment where divine providence has orchestrated your neshama to have a shlichus right here. You can light up the world and find extraordinary meaning here. So Chazal tell us, if you can't experience Simchas Beis Hashoava, you're never going to be besimcha. You're always going to be waiting for the next vacation. So halavai, you should always be able to be on vacation, but it's not always that. You're always waiting for the kids to graduate. First to get married, then to get a house, then to get a good job, then to have a raise, then for this, and then for that. And when are you going to be happy? When you're 99 years old. And even then you'll have something to complain, trust me. They once asked a 104-year-old woman, what's the advantage of living to this age? So she said, no peer pressure. So she had to wait till 104 to get rid of peer pressure, but till then she had peer pressure. If you're looking for other people to make you happy, so one person told me, I'm not going to be happy till my wife changes, till my husband changes, till my shviga changes, till my shver changes, till the world changes. You're going to be miserable your whole life. You can't wait. Happiness is now. Because truth is now. Because God is right now, right here. L'chaim, l'chaim. This needs a little more hesber. So we'll be mafsik with a niggin, and then we'll be mamshich the beer, Be'ezer Hashem. We'll continue the explanation. Whoops, a niggin. Somewhat. Wait, some. Oh, thank you. want to share with you a story. In stories, this is like one of the top 10. I want to say also a special l'chaim l'schus. Shalom Mordechai Alevi ben Rivka. Should be a year of geula for him. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim. They say, what's the definition of a good story? Of a real story, a deep story? What they call by Chassidim, Achsider Shemaisa. The definition is, it's a story, an event in which the soul surprises the mind. So we tell stories so that our own soul should be able to surprise our own minds. Our own concept of how life has to be or is destined to be. So this fits, this title, this description, I think is particularly suitable for the following story, which will also explain the secret of Nisach HaMayim and Ashois HaMayim Litzmoi. And I see in the meantime the heavenly Nisach HaMayim stopped so that we can do some more earthly Nisach HaMayim. So here's the Maisa. It's an Alter Chsidish Maisa. There was a Yid, we'll call him Moishelah, like every good story. Oh, Moishelah even had music in the background. I don't know if when the story happened there was music, but as we recount the story there's music, because when the story happened there was also music. It was just a different type of music. So Moishelah was a very poor Jew, and a very God-fearing Jew, an Erlich Yid. But his favorite Yom Tov in the world was Sukkot. And his favorite mitzvah in the world, if you could say so, was the Lulav and the Esrog. There's always that special chavivus, the special affection that a Jew has the first day of Sukkot, when he or she picks up the Lulav and the Esrog and the Hadus and the Arava. There's something special. And even the second day, the third day, the fourth day, there's an energy that a sensitive soul feels with the Daled Minim. And the last day, or Shana Rabbah, when you shake Lulav the last time, there's a certain, I'm not going to say melancholy, but a certain sense of gaguyim, of yearning for the mitzvah. It's funny, you pick up a Lulav Isruchag, it's a joke. Pick up a Lulav Isruchag, doesn't mean anything. But Sukkot, it's Nishkin Lulav, it's not a palm branch. It's a Lulav. It's a Chefze from Daled Minim. It's a Chefze from Lulav Tzarech Eget. It's a whole different mitzvah. He loved Sukkot. He loved the Daled Minim. He would always save up money to be able to buy the most beautiful, exquisite, splendorous esrog in the world. And Baruch Hashem, every year there was a nice supply of esrogim. It wasn't a great challenge. One year, it was a difficult winter. Just like this year in Italy, Calabria suffered a lot because of frostbite, because of an icy winter. Shalei Haya Kamaisa since 1963, such a winter in Italy. Okay, but Baruch Hashem, Le'alman Yisrael, we have Eretz Yisrael, we have Morocco. But Italy, Calabria, southern Italy wasn't easy. Anyway, it was a difficult winter that year, and the supply of esrogim diminished, and the community got only a few esrogim, and the price went flying high. And when Moishelah came to buy his esrog from the esrog merchant, he was astounded to hear that the esrog cost 1,000 ruble. 1,000 ruble was impossible. It was impossible for him to buy an esrog for 1,000 ruble. And this wasn't the most perfect esrog. It was epis and esrog. Came home and he was very dejected. There was maybe a few esrogim in the city. Everybody would have to share an esrog, but he wanted his own esrog, as he did for every single year for decades. Nope. Erev Sukkot, he can't come to terms with the fact that he doesn't have an esrog. He goes home, finishes building his sukkah, then he has an idea. He looks at his tefillin. He says, you know, for the next 9 days, I don't have to put on tefillin. Let me sell my tefillin, get 1,000 ruble, buy an esrog. After Sukkot, I'll worry about how to get another 1,000 ruble to get back my tefillin. But in the meantime, I'll have an esrog. Esrog is the mitzvah Iveris. It's mitzvah Hayoim. It's the unique mitzvah of Sukkot. Moshe goes. He sells his tefillin. Gets 1,000 ruble. Goes to the merchant. Pays him 1,000 ruble. Comes home with an esrog. Nobody was buying the esrog, and he managed to get a good esrog, beautiful esrog, more than he even expected. He's so excited. Runs into the house. He wants to tell his wife he got an esrog. His wife wasn't home. He's probably shopping for Yom Tov. He puts the esrog down on the kitchen counter, and he goes to do his things, whatever he has to do. Be ma'aged the lulav, finish up the sukkah, cook some fish for sukkahs, gain a mikveh, whatever he had to do for sukkahs. Wife comes home, runs in, he says, you wouldn't believe. Moidedik, you wouldn't believe it. I have an esrog for sukkahs. Really? How? How much was it? You said it was so expensive. It was 1,000 ruble. I know, how in the world did you get 1,000 ruble? So I sold my tefillin. Sold my tefillin, I got the esrog. You sold your tefillin to get your esrog? How are you gonna wear tefillin? I mean, tefillin you need a whole year. Esrog is 7 days, tefillin is a whole year. Where are you gonna get 1,000 ruble for tefillin now? What are you gonna do every day for tefillin? You're gonna wait every day for after Shachar borrow somebody's tefillin? He says, listen, I put on tefillin this morning. For the next 9 days, I have no tefillin. He didn't put on tefillin chalamayit. The das shittas hazoyah. I don't have tefillin. Right now, the mitzvah is lulav, esrog, hadas, arava. That's what I need to do. The only way I can go do the mitzvah now is if I sell my tefillin. So I sold my tefillin because the mitzvah of the moment is mitzvah's daled min. Esrog, lulav, hadas, arava. She's like, that's amazing. That's incredible. What does the esrog look like? It's a beauty. It's a hoda, it's a beauty. Let me see the esrog. Let me see the esrog. He says, it's right here. It's right here on the counter. She says, where? He runs to the counter. He looks. There's no esrog. He says, it was right here. The esrog was right here. I put it down. You should be able to see it. She says, this was your esrog? He says, yeah. Like, mashallah, you won't believe this. I was home. I had to make a compote on applesauce. I decided I need lemon to enhance it. I saw on the counter a lemon. It was a nice lemon. I didn't even suspect. It was an esrog. Where did you come to have an esrog? I knew you gave up on esrog. I took it. I squeezed it into the compote, into the applesauce. I squeezed some into the salad. I cut it into pieces. Not too much liquid was coming out. I had to get all the liquid out. I cut it up. I threw out the peels in the garbage. I didn't know it was your esrog. I thought it was a lemon sitting on the counter. So Moshe goes over to his wife and he gives her a hug and he says, I appreciate you very much and I cherish you very much and I love you very much. Thank you for being such a special partner in my life, such a special wife, such a special soulmate. She looks at him and she says, Moshe, du bist mishuggah geworden. Are you insane? Are you not human? You're not angry at me? You don't want to holler? You don't want to scream? You don't want a divorce? You don't want to run out of this house? You don't want to jump on the table and say, how can you do this? I don't understand you. What are you thinking? Explain to me your emotional process. How is this processed? So Moshe tells his wife, this is what he says. When I had tefillin, I looked at the tefillin, I thought about the esrog, and I said the mitzvah of the moment is to buy an esrog. So I sold my tefillin, and I bought an esrog. And then when you told me that by mistake you cut up the esrog and you threw it in the garbage, and you used the rest for applesauce and salad, I don't have an esrog. Now, the mitzvah of the moment is to love my wife. The mitzvah of the moment right now is to connect to my wife. That's what I do. I do the mitzvah of the moment. The mitzvah of the moment is to be close to my wife. That's what I do. Now, when you analyze stories, you ruin them. But I'm still going to analyze the story because I want to bring the story down to our lives. What did Moshe understand that so many of us don't understand? Moshe, what would most people do in such a scenario? You bought an esrog not for $1,000, for $400. And the $400 is not a half a year's salary. It's money, but it's not a half a year's salary. And your wife, by mistake, breaks off the pitum or uses it as lemon. What would be your response? At best, you would run out of the house and run to the therapist. Or you would go take a drink, not of water, but of wine. A good nisachayaya, not for 7 days, but for 9 days. Or the response by different people would be different ways, which I'm not going to graphically describe now. Moshe wasn't a tzaddik of a generation, but I'll tell you what he was. Moshe was not attached to a particular form of religion. For Moshe, serving Hashem didn't have to look a certain way. Moshe lived in the moment, and he asked himself one question. What does God want from me this moment? What's the mitzvah of the moment? He wasn't attached to any particular structure or form. This is it. That's a form of worship, of idolatry. He didn't worship the tefillin. He didn't worship the esrog. He worshipped God. He wasn't attached and bound up and therefore trapped by what avodas Hashem has to look like. Every moment I ask, what is this moment's heartbeat? I want to dance to the beat of this moment, to live with God right now, this second. He ends up that sukkah without tefillin. He ends up without an esrog. He doesn't have tefillin, he doesn't have an esrog. But he has Hashem. And he has a wife too. Other people might end up with tefillin, might end up with an esrog. They would lose their marriage and they would lose their God. He didn't have an esrog. He didn't have tefillin. But he had God. He was tuned in to the energy, to the calling, to the divine opportunity of the moment. He didn't get drunk on wine, he got drunk on the divine. And that's the difference. And that's the difference between Nisach Hayayin and Nisach Hamayim. The Balatanya, the Alter Rebbe says in the Kutei Torah, in the Maimer Bayoim Hashmini Atzeres Tia Lechem, he says a gewaldige word, open your hearts. We say in Nishmas, Kol berech lecha tichra, v'chol koimo lefanecha tishtachava. You remember? I'm going to say it again on Yom Tov. What does it mean? Every knee will kneel to you, and every koima, these are coming koima, every, not shimini, this is koimin.
Upright.
Every stature,
Upright.
every person standing upright and erect, this koima, the full height of a person, lefanecha tishtachava, will prostrate to you, will bow down to you. As the Balatanya, what's the difference between kol berech l'chaticha v'chol koima lefanecha tishtachava? So he says physically, when you kneel with your knee, So you kneel with your knee, but your body remains erect. Your legs are prostrated. Your legs are kneel. You kneel. Your berech is tichra. That's kriya. Anachnu koirim. Mishtachavim is the whole body goes down. What's the difference? Every Jew kneels to God. V'chulam mekablim aleim el malchus shamayim. Kulam. Who's kulam? Kulam. Everybody. Everybody. In their own way. Kulam. We don't lie in the middle of davening. When we say v'chulam, it means v'chulam. V'chulam mekablim aleim el malchus shamayim. Ayid, the Balatanya said, Ayid nicht will und nicht kann sein abgescheit von Alakus. A Jew can't, nor does he want to be separate from godliness. Innately, he or she is connected. But what does it mean? Kol berech, every knee lecha. I kneel to you. I accept your sovereignty. I do your mitzvahs. I follow your Torah. But my body still remains in its position, in its comfort zone. I worship you. I'll buy tefillin. I'll sell tefillin. I'll buy an esrog. But if it doesn't work out, who is my wife going to get it? Who is my child going to get it? I remain stuck still in my own model of what Judaism looks like, of what God looks like, of what religion looks like. The means you're completely flexible. You're completely flexible. You're not stuck. You're not stuck. Every moment is new. Right now, I don't have tefillin. I don't have an esrog. What's left? Depression, anger, fury, ire, melancholy, despair, youth. What's left? I'm completely flexible and completely open. Now the mitzvah is, I embrace my wife. That's where I find Hashem. I seize the moment right now. Was this a simmer? It's a battery, it's not a simmer? Okay. We told us Yaakov Yosef, you can hear? We told us Yaakov Yosef brings from the Baal Shem Tov. The Gemara says in Tainis Daf Chaf, a person should be as soft as a kana reed, and not as tough, not as harsh, not as inflexible as an erez. An erez is a cedar tree. Literally it means be flexible in life, be reasonable in life. Don't be uncompromising. Don't be an action. Don't be stubborn. Listen to another opinion. Be flexible. Be reasonable. That's literal interpretation. Told us Yaakov Yosef, Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Tulna, brings from his Rebbe, the Baal Shem Tov, a few times, that this is not just an instruction about human behavior. Bein Adam lachaveira. It's also an instruction Bein Adam lamakam. La'olam ye'yadam rach kekana v'al ye'kasha ke'erez means don't be stiff in your avodas Hashem. Don't think that serving God always means the same thing. To really live with Hashem means to really live with Hashem every single moment anew. And friends, it may sound good what I'm saying, but it's not easy to implement and to even understand it, to internalize. You're sitting here and looking at me. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, if you don't understand what I'm saying. If you do understand what I'm saying, I don't know if you're internalizing what I'm saying or you're not internalizing what I'm saying. If you're internalizing what I'm saying, I'm not sure you know how to implement what I'm saying. And if you know how to implement what I'm saying, I'm not sure you're really emoting, you're experiencing the concept, so that it can translate into thought, speech, and action. But it's not an easy thing, because we get stuck on the format. We get stuck on the structure. Because there is a structure. Sukkos you shake esrog. In the middle of the week you put on tefillin. There's a structure. But there is God in the structure. The structure is a tool to connect to infinity. There is the divine in the structure. And therefore, he was always open to what does it mean to live right now. I just lost my esrog. My whole sukkah is destroyed. Nicht chab tefillin, nicht chab esrog. What do I have left? For one person, I got nothing left. I got a miserable Yom Tov, and I have a wife to blame. Baruch Hashem, you can't blame yourself. I said Shabbos, my pittim broke the first day. It was a Calabria esrog. It was very expensive. Double, triple what I usually pay because of the winter in Calabria was very, very difficult. And therefore most esrogim orchards were ruined. Or they were very, very ugly or small. I don't want to say ugly. But they were very blemished and small and green esrogim. But I got a nice, big, beautiful esrog for a lot of money. The Italian merchant saved it for me. I saw that the pittim was very, very shaky. I told him these types of pittim have to fall off on the tree. He says, you're right, but under the circumstances it didn't. So I knew how sensitive it was. I benched the first day on the esrog. I shook lulav the first day. I did the halal and the shyness. And after davening, I picked up my esrog to take it home. It was wrapped and wrapped again and wrapped again. I thought it was wonderful. And I was holding a lot of stuff, and the esrog fell from my hand. And I thought it's not an issue because I wrapped it well. And then I took a look at it, and I saw that the pittim was broken, and there went my esrog. But I didn't have my wife to blame. Only my own shlemazos. And when it comes to yourself, you always find a way to cover it up. Suddenly you find a way to live with it. On all sins, love covers up. But if your child does it, ooh. Baruch Hashem, I did it myself. I'm happy I did it myself. I'm doing now a little therapy to be able to get over it. But I did it myself. But this person, his wife, used it. And she didn't stop. She used it for applesauce, for heaven's sake. You want to know how it tasted? If he ate it. If he ate the applesauce. That's a good question. That's a good question. You want to know if he ate applesauce. My guess is it was hard for him to eat the applesauce. It was probably hard for him to eat the applesauce. But if he can hug his wife after this happened, he could probably get himself to eat the applesauce also. To show appreciation to his wife who made the applesauce. That's my guess. You agree? Good. But this man wasn't connected to any particular structure that he worshipped. He lived with Hashem literally every moment. So now we come to Nisach HaMayim. So this is the difference between wine and water. You see, water doesn't have a fixed shape. You pour water, you put it in one type of cup, it has one shape, another cup, it has another shape. Every liquid really doesn't have a shape. Wine too, but there's a difference. Water doesn't have a color. It doesn't have a color. What's the color of water? Water is colorless. Next. Water is tasteless. Water is scentless. It's aromaless. It has no fragrance. It's colorless. It's scentless. It's tasteless. Wine. Ooh, wine has a color. Beautiful color. It has a smell, a taste, ve'etnach. There's two types of Judaism. There's a Yiddishkeit of Nisuch HaYayin, the Yiddishkeit of Nisuch HaMayim. A Yiddishkeit of Nisuch HaYayin has a color, it has a shape, a color, a taste, a smell. This is what makes it beautiful. This is what makes it delicious. It's the look. You don't just drink wine, you look at the wine. You smell the wine, you taste the wine. Water, pasha to you. But when you take a little water, you do with it a mitzvah, a bissel vasa. The Gemara says that the well of Shiluach, the flow was very, very small. It was the size of an isser. An isser is a little coin, like between a dime and a quarter. A bissel vasa. But he did a mitzvah with this water. He's ecstatic with joy. In other words, what's mayim? My Yiddishkeit doesn't have a color, a shape, a smell, a taste. It's what Hashem wants right now from me at this moment. I'm not stuck in any particular shape. I'm completely open. I'm completely free. And this is the meaning. The Gemara says in Sukkah, the Bakiva says, and it's brought in Medrash and Parshas Emer, it's a Peladika Medrash. Hello. You here? It's working. The Gemara says, the Medrash says, Pri Eitz Hadar, you can hear? Yeah. Pri Eitz Hadar Zeh HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kapes Tmarim Zeh HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Anaf Eitz Hava Zeh HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Arvei Nachal Zeh HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And everyone he brings a pasuk that the esrog is Hashem, the lulav represents Hashem, the hadas represents. What's the point? So just connect to Hashem, daven to Hashem. You take a lulav and a esrog and a hadas and a harava with all the din and what the esrog has to look like, what the lulav has to look like, what the hadas has to look like, and then you tell me Zeh HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Zeh HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Zeh HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But that's the whole chiddush of Sukkot. That's the chiddush of Nisach HaMayim. Life comes in different forms. Life comes in different colors. Life comes in different smells. Life comes in different tastes. There are moments of life like the esrog that have a smell and a taste. There are moments in life that taste good, they don't smell good. There are moments in life that smell wonderfully, but they taste horribly. And there are moments in life, some of you are familiar with them, nishkin tam or nishkin reach. You know, like 4 o'clock in the afternoon in the office. Or in yeshiva sometimes. Like in the afternoon, you're not tired enough to fall asleep, but you're tired enough to be in a bad mood. You know that feeling? You're exhausted enough not to be happy, you're not exhausted enough to go to bed. Like dusk, mincha time. Nishkin tam, nishkin reach. You have people. Tam and reach is the people that have a good reach, meaning they leave good impressions. Their smell is wonderful. But once you taste them, oh my God. It's people, first impressions, they give off wonderful impressions. Anybody here is a good schmoozer? Anybody? You come to a bar mitzvah, you know how to schmooze everybody. But the moment somebody develops a relationship with you, the taste is not so good. Other people, they don't have such a good smell. They're not social butterflies, they're not social animals, they're not butterfly, they're not social butterflies. But once you taste them, once you take them in, they're good. And there are those who have both, and there are those who lack both. We have different moments in life, different experiences in life. Zog the Gemara, what's Sukkot? Pri Eitz Hadar, Zeh HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Anaf Eitz Hava, Zeh HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Arvei Nachal, Zeh HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the chiddush of Maya. If you could become happy from pouring water, then you'll be a happy person. If not, you always need everything to fit perfect. This Jew understood God doesn't only live in tefillin. He lives in tefillin and he lives in an esrog. But he doesn't only live in an esrog. His wife took the esrog and made kampot. Das ist Zeh HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Zeh HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Not life is dead. Yiddishkeit is finished. His relationship is destroyed. Das ist Zeh HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's a new opportunity. It's a new way of avodas Hashem. Mitzvahs hayayim now is I have to connect to my wife. It's also a mitzvah. Now even more than other times, because she's probably heartbroken and guilty, like the minig by Yidden, she's guilty for what she did, especially in this situation. And be'etzem, every idea in Teres HaNister has an expression also in Halacha and Nigla. The Gemara says in Sukkah Dafka, Masechta Sukkah Daf Chafei, everybody knows the Gemara, Chafei Amid Aleph, Ha'oisik b'mitzvah, Patem en ha-mitzvah. The Gemara brings 2 psukim, B'shiftecha b'veisecha, B'lechtecha b'derech, B'shiftecha b'veisecha, Prat lo'oisik b'mitzvah, B'lechtecha b'derech, Prat l'chosim. The Gemara brings a 2nd pasuk, Vayiyu anoshim, the people who were tamei, who couldn't do the carbon pesach, they were oisik b'mitzvah. Tumas mace, they were burying a mace, so patim in a mitzvah, they were patim in carbon pesach. Why are oisik b'mitzvah patim in a mitzvah? Why? You're doing what? Mitzvah, you're exempt from another mitzvah. What's the Havana in it? So there's different explanations. The Ragachava Gon at Tzafos Panayach says, a haflu de kavod. He brings an ayah from a Gemara in Menachos. I'm not going to get into the details. But the Nekuda the Ragachava says is, you know why Oisik mitzvah patim na mitzvah? Because it's like you're doing the other mitzvah also. When you're doing one mitzvah, you're exempt from doing another mitzvah that comes your way, because it's like you're fulfilling the other mitzvah. Why? When you look at mitzvahs, you could see 2 things. You could look at the software, you could look at the hardware. Every mitzvah you say a bracha. Asher kedeshanu b'mitzvayso b'tzivanu laniach tefillin. Asher kedeshanu b'mitzvayso b'tzivanu l'sativ b'tzitzis. Kedeshanu b'mitzvayso b'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbos kodesh. You could look at the lahadlik ner shel Shabbos kodesh laniach tefillin l'sativ b'tzitzis l'kvaya mezuzah afrashas chala. It's a different. This is chala. This is lighting candles. This is mezuzah. This is tefillin. You can also look on the Asher kedeshanu b'mitzvayso. Kedeshanu, the Tanya says this from the word kiddushin. He married us through his mitzvahs. Kiddushin, he betrothed us. He was mekadosh us through his mitzvahs. What's the difference if your wife asks you to buy a bottle of milk or she asks you to buy her a milkshake? What's the difference if she asks you to buy a falafel or she asks you to buy challah? What if she asks you to buy her pretzels or she asks you to buy you tofu? She asks you to buy roses or she asks you to buy popcorn? It's an opportunity to connect. Asher kedeshanu b'mitzvayso. In every mitzvah is the same. Because if you really understand the mohus of a mitzvah, every mitzvah is every other mitzvah. Which agav, Tosfos says over there that Isaac mitzvah patim and mitzvah means if you don't have an opportunity to do the other mitzvah. If you're doing a mitzvah, and you don't have an opportunity to do another mitzvah, so then you don't have to do the other mitzvah. The person is carrying the aron and it's time for Krishna. He can't say Krishna, he's carrying the aron, so he's not patim from Krishna. The Ran argues with Tosfos. The Ran says that's not a chiddush. What should you do? Abandon the first mitzvah? You don't need a pasuk. The Ran says Isaac mitzvah patim and a mitzvah means even if you could do the second mitzvah, you patim and a mitzvah. So everybody wonders what's the svara saran? You could do the second mitzvah, but since you're Isaac mitzvah, you patim and a mitzvah. So there's a shtickle from the Stipling, Kehelas Yaakov, a whole shtickle. Other acharayim discuss it. The Jacobson says the vart is when you're doing the Isaac mitzvah, you're doing the other mitzvah. So you put them in a mitzvah, even if you can do the other mitzvah. Because every mitzvah on this essential level is every other mitzvah. If you could connect to the energy, to the divinity, to the kedushan of the mitzvahs of every mitzvah, is every other mitzvah. It's another way of serving Hashem. Mayim, not yayim. When there's mayim, you're happy every moment. You're not drunk on wine, you're drunk on the divine. You're not drunk from an external stimulant, you're drunk on life. Because every moment of life is a new moment. And every moment of life is an opportunity to connect. And every moment of life gives you a tremendous potential to tune into the unique energy of that moment. Now the energy of that moment may come with pain. There may be a painful experience. It wasn't easy to lose your tefillin and lose your esrog on Erev Sukkot, as they say in English, no good deed goes unpunished. He sells his tefillin, he buys an esrog, he loses his esrog, as geblieben on alles. And yet he had the courage to be able to tune in to that moment and contain the experience and realize that this affords him an opportunity to connect to his wife. What could have he done? He could have lost his tefillin, lost his esrog, and lost his marriage, and lost his sukkahs. And what would he be left with? An angry, bitter, sour Jew. You ever saw that? Cursing the world in the name of God. Always. Mad at the world, angry at the world, in the name of Hashem, because he's such a good guy. He lost everybody. He lost God. That moment of anger, which is a normal human moment, he's detached. He loses connection with oneness. Now it's a normal human emotion. He understood that it's a human emotion, but he could look at the human emotion and choose to go to a deeper place. And the deeper place that he chose is my relationship with God at this moment didn't change. He's here, he's present in the kapot, in the kampot, in the salad. L'lamdach that Hashem exists even in kampot. Even when the juice squeezed in the kampot is not a lemon but an esrog. And it's Erev Sukkot. It's not Isru Chag of Sukkot when you're supposed to make jam. Al Pisa, Agav, an interesting sugya, but again, Nisach Hamayim and Nisach Hayayin were done together. When? By the Talmud Shel Shachar. But the Gemara says that if you do Nisach Hamayim by night, the night before, you're Yotzei. They take water and they pour water the night of Sukkot to fulfill the mitzvah. Nisach Hayayin not. Nisach Hayayin you can only do in the morning. You can do it the night after, but not the night before. That's what the Gemara says. So the Shagas Aryeh in the Sefer Gvuras Ariyah Masechta Tainis, Shagas Aryeh says, what's the difference? So he says Nisuch hayayin is choivas hazevach. Nisuch hamayim is choivas hayoim. You understand? Nisuch hayayin is a din in the carbon. Every carbon, every animal offering comes with nesachim, comes with wine pourings. Like we say, v'niska, nisachah. It's a choivas hazevach. When is the first time you can be makim the carbon tamid? In the morning? You can't do it the night before. B'yoyim tzavois, you have to do it by day. So when could you bring the yayin? Only by day. From the morning on, even if you do it the night after. But nisuch hamayim is not choivas hazevach. It's choivas hayoim. It's a din in sukkahs. It's not a din in the carbon tamid. When the sukkahs begin? Sukkahs begins at night. So b'di'evet, you could do nisuch hamayim even the night before. Because it's not a din in the carbon, it's a din in the day. That's a shagas ayis of chal.
So then why only b'di'evet?
Why only b'di'evet? Because the din of Nesachim was said with Tamid Shel Shachar. The Zman of Nesachim was Tamid Shel Shachar. Even Nisuch Hayan you could do the night after, but only b'di'evet. Because l'chatchila you're supposed to do it with a carbon.
Because that's a din of the carbon. Over here, the whole sukkah is the first.
You're right, but the Zman of Nisuch Hamayim, l'chatchila was said during the carbon. When you do the yayin, together with the yayin you do the mayim. But because it's be'etzem chayvus hayayin, so therefore you can do it the night before. This is Parshat in Allah. What does this mean? Every concept in Allah is expressed in Avodas Hashem. Every person in their life has night and day. Day is when the sun shines, everything is beautiful. Night is when it gets a little dark. It's a finster. It's dark. There's an eclipse. We just had an eclipse and the hurricanes didn't stop. The eclipse came and the hurricanes came in their aftermath with earthquake, with hurricane. Life sometimes gets eclipsed. Somebody who lives only with Nisuch Hayayin, that's during the day. By day he can prevail. Because what is wine? Wine has a taste. Wine is royal. Wine is rich. Wine is a delicacy. Wine is beautiful. Wine has a color and a fragrance and a taste as explained. When it's daytime, and he has all the stimulation that comes from great, exhilarating moments. Wine is exhilarating to the brain, stimulating to the heart, uplifting to the mind. It has an impact on your chemicals, hopefully a positive one. A person is, by day, he could pour the wine and celebrate. But when there's night, when there's a challenging moment, when you just lost your tefillin and you lost your esrog, and what competed with your esrog? A kompot and applesauce. Here's where you need Nisuch Hamayim. Nisuch Hamayim could be by night also. The power of Nisuch Hamayim is that Yiddishkeit doesn't have a particular color, or taste, or fragrance. You're not addicted to a particular comfort zone or structure. What does God look like? You're open to infinity. You're open to dveikus. You're open to truth. And that's every moment. Every moment gives you that gift. Night and day. Sagt Chazal, say Chazal, Kol mi shelo Simchas Beis Hashoava lo simcha. To be able to experience real simcha, you have to experience Simchas Beis Hashoava. If not, you're always looking for the next high. Simchas Beis Hashoava teaches you how to get drunk on life itself, every moment. Why? Because when you're thirsty for truth, when you're thirsty for Hashem, who is undefined by any color, by any taste, by any image. It doesn't look, Yiddishkeit doesn't have to look a certain way. Doesn't always look the same way. Al yehei kosher ke'ene, sagt the Baal Shem Tov. Rach kekona. Sometimes right now Hashem wants this, and an hour later he wants this. I'm flexible. Kol koimo lefanecha tishtachave. I don't only kneel. I'm completely flexible. I'm not attached with strings. I'm not attached with cords. I'm not chained in shackles. I'm not trapped by what I call religion, which can also be a trap. Because I'm connected to Hashem, who is not about a trap, not about an image. Then Ra Simcha Miyom. When you have that simoy and that thirst for emesdikait, then there's nothing as delicious as water. There's nothing as beautiful as water. There's nothing as tasteful as water. There's nothing as intoxicating, as exciting, inebriating as water. Chaim. Your turn.
They're telling me already half an hour ago to shut up your mic. Should you continue? Got it. You want to pick one? Okay.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.